Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk podcast. This is Devil's Advocate. This is, going to be our Sevilla preview. We're going to chat about Vidic Van Dijk bullshit as well. We're going to chat about that. And also, we'll be chatting about a certain Irishman linked to Manchester United as well. Obviously, joined by my co-host Julio and Jay Motty from Stretford Paddock as well. And Jonathan will make an appearance at some point in the podcast as well. But first of all, Jay, I know we were just speaking off air and you were talking about the Vidic Van Dijk, I suppose, debate that the Scousers have been bringing up in the last couple of days. Just talk to me, because like this comparison that's been thrown about, that's been made, I feel like is one of the most nonsensical arguments in the history of Premier League. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of part of the course, isn't it? Jamie Carragher, who's had his running with Van Dijk, don't forget, this season. Jamie Carragher, he said earlier, I wouldn't get into this Liverpool team. Then he said actually he would, because he criticised Van Dijk's performances. And Van Dijk called him out and said, you wouldn't get in this Liverpool team. I think he said something like, you wouldn't even make the squad. So they've had a little bit of a spat. And I feel like this is Carragher sort of trying to build bridges with him maybe and with the fan base and going, oh, you know what, I love Van Dijk. He's this, that, and he's better than Vidic, far better than Vidic. And for me, it's almost like a little bit either tongue-in-cheek or deluded. I watched Vidic for his entire career at Manchester United. I've seen Virgil van Dijk pretty much all his time at Liverpool, and the comparison's just not there. I think Virgil van Dijk had two very good seasons. They won the Champions League, they won the league. Nemanja Vidic had six seasons, was it? Where he won, 4 titles, I think, or maybe 5 titles. The Champions League, won the Champions League and the Premier League in the same season, of course, something Virgil van Dijk wasn't able to do. And was just a superior defender, I think, far more reliable. Virgil van Dijk's had this purple patch and then fell off a bit of a cliff. And I know he got the injury, of course, but even before that, they got beat 7-2, I think, at Villa, and he was part of that team. And then you look at some of his performances of late. I tweeted the other day against Arsenal, has he been paid off? Because he was shocking in that first half. I've never seen Nemanja Vidic drop a performance like that. I've never seen Nemanja Vidic drop a season like the season that Virgil van Dijk had, last season, and he's currently having as well. So I just think this is a little bit of Jamie Carragher trying to get the fan base, the Scouse fan base, on board with him. And anyone who watched Virgil van Dijk and who watched Nemanja Vidic knows you can't compare someone who had 6 or 7 fantastic seasons to someone who had 2.
Yeah, again, like I said, I think it's a nonsensical argument because, first of all, if Liverpool fans, or let's say Jamie Carragher, for example, wants to bring up the injury, the Virgil van Dijk's injury, Nemanja Vidic done his cruciate, didn't he, in 2011, and then came back and won the Premier League. What did Virgil van Dijk do after his injury? Do you know what I mean? Van Dijk's done next to nothing since his injury. Also, you look at Nemanja Vidic. He's part of the defence that kept 14 straight clean sheets, the British record. That hasn't been broken since. And people can turn around and say that that's down to Edwin van der Sar. In matter of fact, it probably, like all due respect to Edwin, who was a fantastic goalkeeper, it was down to that defence. That defence was rock solid. And that defence set the foundations for the likes of Ronaldo, Rooney and Tevez to literally stay high up the pitch and press teams because they were so solid at the back. And that was largely down to Nemanja Vidic's influence in terms of his ability to win the ball. Like, look, it would all, with respect to Van Dijk, I think he's been a great defender for Liverpool in terms of their rebuild, and actually him and Alisson turned them around to be like a team that could challenge them two alone. Obviously, the Salahs and Manes who went on and obviously scored a heap of goals, but to say that he's had the level of consistency and continuity in the Premier League compared to Nemanja Vidic, it's nonsense. And then also you have to consider the thing they say about Fernando Torres roasted him every time he played him. Are we going to say that same argument for Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial with the amount of goals they've scored against Virgil van Dijk? Like, again, I think it's recency bias is really coming into this a lot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I just think that whatever metric you use to decide who's the better defender, Vidic comes out on top. When you look at the stats, he comes out on top. When you look at the trophies he's won, when you look at the amount of years he's done it for, when you look at some of the bigger games that he's had, and people have to sort of use lies, basically. The whole, like you said there, Fernando Torres had Nemanja Vidic on toast or whatever. His record was 3 goals in 15 games. That's, is it Leandro Trossard has scored 4 in 2 against Van Dijk? Like, come on. Like you said, Marcus has got, I think, 6 in 13 against Van Dijk. Yeah. It just doesn't stand up to scrutiny, the argument. And also, it's slightly weird anyway. I don't get the whole Vidic versus Van Dijk. For me personally, the best defender I've ever seen at United is Jaap Stam, the second best Rio Ferdinand. So if you're going to compare your best defenders, pick one of our best defenders. I'm not no disrespect to Nemanja Vidic. I think I put him in third. But why him? Why not Rio? Why not Stam? If you want to compare Jaap Stam spent 3 seasons at Manchester United Football Club, won 3 titles and a treble. At the same age when we signed Jaap Stam, Virgil van Dijk, I think, was playing for Southampton. So, come on. There's a reason he was at Southampton until he was 27. No disrespect to the kid. But he wasn't that good until his last season at Southampton, and obviously went to Liverpool. Rio Ferdinand I think, a £18 million signing back when 18 million quid was a lot of money for Leeds when he was about 21. I mean, and then he came to United in his early 20s and won the lot. So it's just sort of bending an argument to try and fit a narrative. And listen, Liverpool fans are always going to back Van Dijk. I get it. United fans are going to back Nemanja Vidic. I understand that. But I think if you're being a little bit more objective and you look at it in terms of trophies, stats, games, longevity, Vidic just comes out on top. And that's without getting to the point of actually he's not even the best defender I've seen for Manchester United.
Yeah, that's where it comes in again. It's like it's just it's a nonsensical argument. It's something that just, for me, especially when you mentioned that Carragher's hypocrisy this season has really shone through when you look at like the Lisandro Martinez arguments, calling Eric Ten Hag, Eric 10 months, like really, he's really shown his hand this season. And for a large part, he's been proved massively, massively wrong. Jonathan, first of all, welcome to the show. What's the crack? What did you make of all this? I suppose nonsense on social media the last couple of days, like.
Yeah, look, I'm not at all surprised it was coming from Jamie Carragher, but I would expect a Sky Sports professional pundit to be a bit more objective. Like when I first saw the tweet, I did 2 things. The first thing I checked was the date of the tweet. I thought someone had retweeted a tweet from the 1st of April. And then the second thing I did was to make sure it wasn't a parody account, because I couldn't believe that an actual Sky Sports pundit was actually being so direct in comparing one of the greatest centre-backs of all time and judging him on a couple of games against Fernando Torres. Vidic probably had 2 bad games against Torres. He had two red cards, but like you've already mentioned, Torres only scored 3 goals in 15 games against Vidic. I don't know where this came out of all of a sudden after an Arsenal-Liverpool game on Sunday. It was bizarre. It was like Carragher had just completely lost the plot and just started biting back at Man United fans who were obviously giving him jip on Sunday. But just bizarre. Like I'm not at all surprised that he thinks Van Dijk is a better centre-back than Vidic. It's the typical Liverpool versus Man United debate. He's always going to go with the Liverpool centre-back regardless of stats. But I just found the directness of it and the randomness of it bizarre beyond anything else.
Yeah, and like he it's not even like he quote tweeted. I think the original thing was actually like it was a rant, like it was a neutral football account that actually tweeted something about Van Dijk falling off and don't compare Van Dijk to, was it Terry, Rio and Vidic and Vincent Kompany. That was the original tweet. Like, don't compare him to these centre-backs. When, a matter of fact, all of them centre-backs, and I would never stick up for a Manchester City or a Chelsea player ever in my life. Look at their body of work compared to Virgil van Dijk. Simple as that, like. That's just it. Regardless of what some of these players done on and off the pitch, their body of work as a footballer, Virgil van Dijk doesn't come anywhere close. And it's, again, like you said, just nonsensical scouse arguments. It's ridiculous. Julio, do you have anything to add to this, or have you a different viewpoint to us in terms of this?
No. I think you've all touched on the most accurate points there. I think there's an argument to be had that if Carragher was going to compare him to any centre-back, he's choosing the wrong type of centre-back, because Van Dijk is not that kind of centre-back. But simply put, and there's being harsh and abrasive, and then there's calling it for what it is. This Liverpool wank fest needs to stop. It's becoming a problem, honestly. Like, Van Dijk is top 5 at best. I can, like, Tony Adams, Kompany, Terry, Rio, Stam, Vidic, these are all almost nailed on top 5 in comparison. And I think, like Jay said, recency bias is becoming a problem. Like I mentioned Jaap Stam on someone on Instagram yesterday. and someone's tried to start a debate about this whole, oh, Sir Alex would finish third in this Pep Klopp era. And I said that there's two things wrong with that. One, the Pep Klopp era.
It's the Pep era. It's not the Klopp era. How many
Exactly. They've only
won
directly competed 3 times, and Pep's got the better of him on more than one occasion. And Klopp's win was when City were dross and all the other top 6 clubs were rebuilding. We had Ole, Spurs had Jose, Chelsea had the transfer ban with Frank Lampard, and Arsenal sacked Emery and got Arteta in. And the second point was, you gentlemen may remember this better than I do because I'm quite young, unfortunately. But they were saying the same things in 2005 when Ferguson was going up against the likes of prime Wenger, prime Jose, and prime Benitez. And he still came out and won Premier League titles in that period. So he adapted then, and he'd find the ability to adapt now. But you've all hit the nail on the head regarding it. I think this is ridiculous. I think it's random. And can you imagine if Gary Neville or Rio Ferdinand came out with one of these comments? They would be absolutely slapped on Twitter. I'm not happy that Liverpool pundits seem to get away with saying anything. And the moment United pundits say anything, they get absolutely slandered or just slated for anything they say. So I'm disappointed that someone who, let's be honest, whether you like it or not, he's one of the top 2, top 3 pundits on Sky, supposedly. And he's being so biased almost and not as objective as he should be.
Yeah, it's a great point about Wenger and Jose and Benitez, because if you look at that sort of period of time you're talking about, I remember it well. I'm a little bit older than you, a little older than you. And I remember in 2004, you had the Arsenal season where they drew 12 games and won the title. You had the 2005, you had the Scousers winning the Champions League under Benitez. 2005 and 2006 as well. You also had Jose Mourinho arriving off the back of winning the Champions League at Porto, coming into the Premier League, winning back-to-back titles. And everyone's looking at it going, you've got all these managers now. Fergie's done out here. He's a dinosaur. He can't cope. And what does he do? He wins 3 in a row. He wins the Premier League and the Champions League again in the same season. The only manager to do it, and he's done it twice. And he absolutely smashes it again with almost a new team. So Fergie could adapt and he could beat whoever. Now you look at the current managers you've got. Klopp's won 1 Champions League since he's been in the Premier League. Which is there's nothing wrong with that. Benitez has done the same. Pep Guardiola's won a couple of Champions Leagues before he got to the Premier League. Jose Mourinho had done the same. He won, obviously, different times. Won at Inter Milan in 2010 and won at Porto in 2004. So the managers that you're praising now, or that people are praising now and saying these managers are special, they compare almost the same to the managers that were around then. These were title winning. Jose had won 3 Premier League titles. Klopp's won 1. There's a difference there. Wenger won 3 Premier League titles. I know Pep's won, I think 4, is it? So any era, Sir Alex Ferguson would have been able to handle it. Those managers in the 2003, 2004, 2005, those were elite managers. And don't forget as well, people almost ignore this fact. In 2010, Carlo Ancelotti won the double. The following season, United regained our title. Carlo Ancelotti is arguably the best manager on the planet. His CV speaks for itself. Unlike Pep and unlike he wins Champions Leagues like me and you have dinners.
Everywhere he goes.
The guy is elite. And he came into the Premier League, he won a title, and Fergie went, right, that's the end of that. Won it back, and he got sacked. Fergie went up toe-to-toe against anyone, and he was always left standing. So the idea that he couldn't cope with Jurgen Klopp, who's won 1 Premier League title in 8 years, or Pep Guardiola, is a nonsense.
Yeah, it's absolute nonsense is the best word I'm going to use for that. But yeah, look, it's 100%. It's like when I look at these arguments that have been made lately, it's just blatant disrespect. Not even nonsensical. It's just disrespectful, and that's why the title of this video is "Put Respect on Vidic's Name," because that Virgil van Dijk argument to him is disrespectful. And comparing, saying that Sir Alex couldn't cope with Jurgen Klopp and Pep, that's scandalous. It's the best I can say about that. But we will move on from this Scouse Fest because I don't want to give them any more airtime than they deserve. But Jay, I'm gonna come to you on Sevilla, coming up in the Europa League, because obviously we've been playing Spanish teams more or less all season in Europe, and we seem to be conquering the Real Sociedad, Real Betis, Barcelona. But we're coming up against an old enemy in Seville who, let's be honest, anytime we've come up against them in Europe, we've struggled. Now, granted, 13th in La Liga right now, but when it comes to Europa League, it seems to be their competition, their territory. Are you worried about Thursday's game against Seville?
Yeah, I mean, you have to pay them some respect. I know they're struggling in the league, as you said, but I remember back in, was it 2018 under Jose, where we went away, we got that draw, and then we were like, oh, you know what, we'll do them at Old Trafford. And then your man, was it Ben Yedder, scores those 2 goals in 5 minutes to knock us out of the Champions League. And that felt like the first nail in Jose's coffin at United. Because you remember after the game, he went, well, we weren't going to win it anyway. What are you on about? What's this attitude? And that was the season, if memory serves, that the Scouts just got to the final. Sorry, I know we're trying to have a Scouts-free zone now. Forgive me. But you look at it and you go, Sevilla, we thought we'd do him, and then actually we came unstuck. So you have to, I know that was obviously 5 years ago, but more recently, as you've mentioned, in the Europa League as well, we had a difficult time against them. They knocked us out. Was it the semi-final? Sorry.
Lockdown,
Yeah, so you do have to respect them, because I think we've gone into those games as favourite and we haven't won. But I do have to sort of add the caveat, over 2 legs, with Casemiro and Eriksen coming back into the team, looking at this Sevilla team, it isn't a good one. Like the Sevilla team that we played under Jose was a Champions League team. That's literally where we were playing them. This team is a million miles away from playing in the Champions League right now. So whilst you have to be respectful, you've also got to be pretty honest. And I think that for me, if we can comfortably beat Barcelona over 2 legs, I know we drew away, but I felt we were in control of that game.
We're the better team
with the new and at Old Trafford. I can't see us struggling against a team that's 17 places behind them or whatever, even being brutally honest.
Yeah, like, look, it's I do have my worries, because they turn, like, it's like Real Madrid in the Champions League. Like, Madrid might be doing bad domestically, and then in the Champions League they turn into a different animal. It's almost like that with Seville in the Europa League. They always seem to turn up. They always seem to grind a result. And it's just like looking at recent history, like you said, like in that season in lockdown, like we had Bruno banging in all the goals. Martial, Rashford were scoring freely as well. And like, I really thought we were going to get to that Europa League final. Unfortunately, we didn't, and we know what happened. But Jonathan, a certain player that's out on loan there right now is current Man United player Alex Telles, flattered to deceive in the United shirt for large parts. Do you have any concern about him just turning into prime Roberto Carlos on Thursday? Because he's been absolutely shocking in the United shirt, but anytime a lone player or a former player plays against us, we seem to always come unstuck. Do you think Anthony can make bits of him, or do you think he's going to turn to prime Roberto Carlos?
Yeah, I remember a similar situation a couple of years ago when Diogo Dalot was on loan at AC Milan. I remember being quite wary of him at the time, and worrying that maybe he'd come back to haunt us a little bit. He didn't at the time, and I would hold Dalot a little bit higher in esteem than Alex Telles. I just think that it was a bit of a panic sign at the time. I think he was one of those real FIFA players, a brilliant player on FIFA, but in real life just flattered to deceive. I think Ten Hag will have the mark of him on Thursday. I think Anthony could cause him a lot of problems. I mean, if you look back at the Everton game on Saturday, it was Ben Godfrey playing at left full. Now, I know he's not a conventional left back, but Anthony had him on toast. They played their tactics 100% spot on. And, if they can get Alex Telles turned on Thursday evening, it's going to be a long evening for him. And Alex Telles starting for Sevilla just tells you kind of what sort of squad they have at the minute. I was just taking a quick glance at their travelling squad there this afternoon when it was released, and it really is a squad of journeymen. I mean, there's the likes of like Eric Lamela and Suso that used to play for Liverpool. Like they're an experienced team, but you really would have to fancy United the way we're playing under Ten Hag at the minute, the confidence that we're playing with. Like last year, the season before, I would have been a lot more concerned. I'd be wary of Sevilla, but I would be confident and I'd be hopeful that we win comfy enough this Thursday. I think the away leg will be a different story, but I think it could be similar to Betis, and that we'll get the job done hopefully on Thursday evening.
Yeah, I do hope so. I do think that obviously with the first leg being at home, you'd like to think we get the job done early and get a few goals and really get it out of sight, because we've seen obviously in European ties that in second leg away is always tough. And like, look, even though this season we've been brilliant in Spain, we did, like if you look over the long term, our record against Spanish teams isn't great. So it'd be great to obviously score a few goals, put tie to bed, and hopefully, like Jay said, like we don't have a similar situation to 2018 where we drew in Seville and thinking, lovely, look, Jose said, yeah, look, we'll bring him back to Old Trafford and we'll do him. And that didn't happen. So hopefully that's not the case in Seville. Julio, obviously up front, Marcus Rashford looks like he's going to be out for that game. So up front, what are you thinking? Are you thinking Phil Weghorst? Do you give Anthony Martial a go from the start? Do Bruno falls 9? What are you thinking for the striker position on Thursday?
Firstly, I love the fact that obviously we've played Sevilla in the past, and that 2018 loss, Jose came out obviously with the famous football heritage lecture, and our football heritage with Sevilla isn't looking good going into the game. But I think Sevilla have been in a relegation battle for the majority of the season, which obviously for a team of Sevilla standards shouldn't happen. Obviously, they've come away from that a bit more and they're 13th now. I think that it's difficult because obviously Martial's just come back into the fold and you don't want to lose him immediately. But I think if you're looking at it, transition, I think, would be key. And without Rashford, we might be lacking a bit more of that immediate transition. So I think Martial needs to play. I think it's essential that we have him leading the line and we have Sancho and Anthony on the wings. I don't think this is the sort of game you'd want Wout Weghorst playing in. As much as I love him for what he offers off the ball, but I think transition is the key, and I think you have to go with a very fluid front three, similar to what we saw against Everton at the weekend.
Yeah, I think for us, you've seen the difference in Rashford in the last 2 games played up top, and then consequently when Martial came on, that the front three is a lot more fluid, there's a lot more movement, and especially against Newcastle, we struggled with Weghorst up top, and and Anthony kind of really stifled the other 2 wide players. So look, Weghorst has done a job, he's come in, he's done well. Look, personally, he's not my cup of tea, I'm not going to lie. I defended him for the last couple of weeks, but when I watch how we, like you said, how we attack and transition without him, especially in a European game, I don't think Weghorst will be that type of player. Now, look, if there's a case where we might have to go route 1 at some point, yeah, maybe. But even at that, he doesn't win many headers. 6'7" what he is, and he doesn't win many headers. So, yeah, look, he's a strange one. I definitely wouldn't start him. I think if Martial is ready to go, you play him, because you look how he holds up the ball, how he drops in and gets the play started. He gets the counter attack going. And Bruno Fernandes have a brilliant link up together. They have a brilliant relationship. So I think Martial definitely would be the one I definitely go with. And we're going to bring this question to Jay from the comments. Brian says, just a thought. But with it being tight in the league and our lack of squad depth, would you be happy to bin Europa League and concentrating on securing top 4? Jay, I'll leave you have that one.
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily want to bin it. I could see the league being the priority, but I think it also offers you a safety net, the Europa. Because don't forget, if you win the Europa League, you go into the Champions League, and if the wheels were to come off in the league and you're still in the Europa League, then you've got a chance, haven't you? Remember, obviously, 2017, that's how we got into the Champions League. Also, we mentioned the game against Barcelona. Pretty epic tie that. Got past him. It'd be a shame to go, well, we got past him and then just gave up. So yeah. I wouldn't bin it off. I get Brian's point. The league should be the focus. But I do think you can have a little bit of a sort of rotation and challenge. I think the Europa League's there for the taking this season. There's some okay teams in it. I don't think they're that good. Barcelona were the best team in it, and we've knocked them out. So I look at it and I think it's doable for us to win this competition, even with a bit of rotation. And I think that we've got a squad that isn't good enough to challenge for a Premier League title, but I think we have got a squad that can challenge for the Europa League and get top 4, if I'm being honest. I know we've got the FA Cup as well, but it's 2 games at most. So if it came to a crunch game where you've got the Europa semi and a league game, and you go, okay, which is going to be my strongest team, which game am I going to focus on? Yeah, I would pick my strongest team for the league game, but I wouldn't just bin off the Europa. I still think you can rotate and go for it.
Yeah, and like even Nicky points out in the comments as well, like Arsenal are knocked out. And if you look at our semi-final tie, how can we bin it? Let's say that for all intents and purposes, we knock Sevilla out here. We have here the Juventus or Sporting Lisbon. which is a very tough game, very, very tough game. So I don't see how you could bin Europa League and then just throw out what the kids against them and let them get smacked. It'd be demoralising. So I wouldn't. Look, at the end of the day, you look at our run in between now and the end of the season. Like, we have Tottenham away and Brighton away. They're our two toughest games. Every other game is winnable, even with 2 or 3 changes like we've seen on the weekend. Even at we've Chelsea at home, but that game, because of the FA Cup, is going to be rescheduled to last week of the season. And you'd like to think when you look at Liverpool, Spurs, and Newcastle's fixtures between now and the end of the season, we should be in a position where we can actually make changes. Top 4 should be wrapped up. That's obviously fingers crossed that our best players are fit. And the fact that Casemiro and Eriksen are back and Martial is back, and you'd like to hope Garnacho will be back in a couple of weeks. At the end of the day, why couldn't we go all out for all of them at the moment? And as Jay said, the FA Cup, there's literally 2 games, 2 90-minute games at Wembley. So why would we bin it? At the end of the day, this is a squad that hasn't won. If you look at the experienced players in the squad right now, your Varans, your Casemiros, De Gea, Lisandro Martinez, all these types of players, they've won trophies elsewhere, right? And De Gea's obviously won trophies United. Why wouldn't they want to add to their collection trophies they haven't won? Do you know what I mean? We've winners in our squad now. Why would we be in a competition? If people want to be Man United again, why would we be in a competition? Any competition win, we should be aiming to win it. And that's even next season when we get into the Champions League. Now, people might go mad at me at that. But when you're Manchester United, you need to be competing for every single competition. And you shouldn't be binning anything. Now, Jose Mourinho won the league in 2017 to win the Europa League. In January, he literally decided, I'm going for the Europa League. And we finished 6th. Jay talked about Arsenal's 12 draws. I think we drew 10 or something that season as well. I remember the Sundays after Europa League were horrible that year. So, look, you go for it. You go for every single trophy, and that's what Man United is. You shouldn't be accepting any less. Because people would use that same argument against Ollie last season when Ollie threw his second team out against West Ham in the League Cup. And what was the argument then? I feel like people are just using arguments at the minute to suit their own narrative. But I've come to Jonathan and Julie on this already, but there's been a story in the last 24 hours, Jay, in terms of Manchester United striking and I suppose striker ambitions in the summer. It was released that United are going to be looking at either Harry Kane and Evan Ferguson in the summer. When you look at the striking options right now for yourself, would you be along the lines of going for Kane and Ferguson? Obviously, you've the prime player in Harry Kane, guaranteed Premier League goal scorer, and there's a very young, good prospect in Ferguson who's highly touted at the moment. Would you be in that camp right now in terms of getting them, or would you be looking at an alternative like a Victor Osimhen or Joe Vlahovic or someone like that?
The sort of Ferguson Kane idea makes sense in the sense that, as you mentioned, Kane's 30, I think, in June, so he'd be 30 if by the time he signed for us. Ferguson, I think, is he 18? Is he quite young? So you think, okay, if Kane has 3 years, say, at United before he's sort of in his decline, by that time Ferguson's 21, he can then take over. It makes a bit of sense. So I get it, and I wouldn't be against it. I think the one thing I would be wary of is just overpaying. I think Kane's going to cost at least 100 million, even though he's 30. I think Daniel Levy won't sell him for anything less than that. And I think with Ferguson, whilst he's had a very, very good start, and he does look like the real deal, I'd just be quite wary of spending a lot of money on a striker who A, is probably not going to start for you, and B, has got off to a flyer, but you've still got to wait and see how that pans out a little bit.
I think with that,
I know people go, well, he's smashing it. He's going to be a superstar. Maybe I'm being overly cautious. It's just I remember saying the same about Adnan Januzaj or Kiko Makeda or players that burst onto the scene and were absolutely mint for 24 games and then fell off a cliff. Now, I don't expect Ferguson to do that. I'm just saying I wouldn't go out and spend 60 million or whatever on an 18-year-old when you spend 100 million on Harry Kane if that's all your transfer budget. Because then you're going, okay, well, we need a right back, we can't get one or whatever. So I think it makes sense. My personal preference would be Victor Osimhen. I don't know if we're going to get him. There was a story out today that Bayern Munich want him, and he's open to go in there. Yeah, exactly. So I would be up for Kane. I think he could win a title with us. And I like the kid Ferguson. I just feel like you've got to be cautious about how much you're going to spend on 2 strikers, especially when one of them is probably not going to start.
I think the one thing that'll help us with the Ferguson one is he doesn't have English tax. If he was English, that'd be a massive problem. You said,
true.
it would be the 50, 60 million, definitely that would happen. But I think one good option with this is because he's Irish, he won't have that massive price tag on him. In this day and age, in this market, that won't happen. I do believe it's probably 25 to 30 million, probably max.
That'd be reasonable for me.
I think that's what he'd be. That's when I did see an Irish media outlet though write about him. They said that would probably be the transfer fee that Ferguson would go for. And even at that, I think one thing we could do with that is if you bought him for that price now and then you loan him back to the fact that Keane probably play every game, maybe you loan him back to the Zerbi for a season and let's see how he gets on from there. I think that could be an option. But look, from speaking from obviously probably a bit of a biased perspective on him, and Jonathan would probably obviously have that same bias being Irish as well. I think it'd be great, even the comment here, Nicky says, it'd be great to have another Irish player at United. Obviously we haven't had one since obviously likes of Roy Keane, John O'Shea, and that actually the last Irish player at United was Leo Connor, currently at Celtic now, but that shows since then. But it'd be great to see another Irish player at United, and look, it'd be great to see it'd be great to see Evan Ferguson make that step. Look, he's doing fantastically well at Brighton. He burst on scene now on the international stage as well. Played very well against France as well a couple of weeks ago. And for Ireland, when you consider our midfield, and against France, he did get himself about. But Jonathan, would you be in that kind of camp? Let's say if United did go in and get Evan Ferguson, would you be looking to maybe loan him back to Brighton if we are to buy him? Or do you think, let's say he has another breakout season, let's say at Brighton, let's say he bangs in the 15 to 20 goals, which he's very well capable of next season in a Brighton shirt. Would you be worried that, let's say if we don't take the punt on him now, that you're maybe looking at a situation where if Brighton are charging 60 million for Marco Correa and players like that they could maybe price Evan Ferguson out of a move maybe next season? That's not just with United, but just in general.
Yeah, you're kind of in that situation at the minute, aren't you? You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. With the sort of transfer budget that we're going to have this summer, like what Jay touched on, I mean, are we going to be able to afford a Harry Kane in that 90 to 100 million euro or pound range, and then maybe spend another 30 million on Evan Ferguson on top of that, when we do need another midfielder? We need a technically better right back. We do have other priorities. We're not in a position where we just need a forward. Everything else is set and ready to go, and we just need a forward. So, it would be a bit of a risk to splurge 30 million of our budget on a player that isn't going to be starting week in, week out. The other side of that as well is if you bring a player like Ferguson this summer and there is no loan option or send back option, does that stunt his development then? Are we going to stop seeing the development that we're seeing at Brighton under De Zerbi? He's doing very, very well there at the minute. I know there's talks of him signing a new contract as well. Then the other aspect is, right, we'll keep an eye on him for another season. And like you said, he could bang in 15 to 20 goals next season. And all of a sudden, the whole of Europe has taken note. He signed a new contract at Brighton. And all of a sudden, a £25 million player has become a £70 million player because of his potential. And you've got 3 or 4 of Europe's top clubs vying for him. So, it is a tough one.
Spurs, well, especially if Pochettino goes in there, let's say, hypothetically speaking, that's like a Pochettino project type player as well.
Yeah, 100%. So it's an awkward one at the minute. It's up in the air. Personally, I don't see him moving this summer. I think he's happy where he is. Brighton are doing well. If they qualify for the Europa League even for next season, it'd be great to see a player like Ferguson in the Europa League and European competition, see how he gets on and that sort of thing. You saw how good the Europa League was this year. Do you know what I mean? So if he's playing against top level opposition next year again on the European stage, that could bring his game on again. But look, from a United point of view, I don't think there's any right answer this summer. Do you know what I mean? So it's just about seeing how it plays out.
We can just get Wayne Rooney reincarnated and put him in there. That'd be the right answer if that was possible. Just give Wayne Rooney new set of legs, get him out there, get him in up front, and there's all our problems sorted. If playing Wayne Rooney in Eric Ten Hag's system, considering his skill set, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Julio, before obviously we get score predictions off everyone, do you have any other alternative striker wise? Osimhen and Kane have been the two touted. I think, look, for me, if I had an option right now, it'd be Harry Kane all day. I just look at him. I look what he's doing in that bang average Spurs team right now, and he's 20 goals in the league in that team. He's the one for me. But is there anyone for you, like, do you know, is there anyone even unknown that Man United should be looking at?
There are a couple of alternatives. I mean, but there would be as more of an understudy as an alternative to the Ferguson role because the counter argument is Weghorst loan looks like it's not going to become permanent, and there are talks that United are open to letting Martial go. Because say what you want about Martial's ability, it's amazing. I love the guy, but he's made of glass, and as someone. Mr. Motti there knows well, your best ability is availability. And if he's not available, then who can we count on? Because think, if you had Kane or even Ferguson in this team this season, we may be 2 wins closer to a higher position in the league, or things would have been a little bit easier this season. I think my preference is Kane, because if you're spending 80 to 100 million on a main striker, I think you'd want him to be as proven as Harry Kane is. And I think, listen, I want Evan Ferguson to come in as an understudy because United would want him. He would want United. I think it's fair to say. And who better to learn from than a guy who was a one-season wonder almost 10 years ago, and he's still banging in the goals even in an average Spurs team. But if it's not Ferguson this season, because I know he's Irish, but I don't buy into the fact that Brighton won't price him out of a move. I think it's a young player, promising. People are saying Wayne Rooney levels of talent is showing early on. But if it's not him, and that new contract he could sign could bump his value up, but if it's not him, then Rasmus Højlund from Atalanta in Italy, there's talks that apparently he's openly admitted he supports United and would love to come in. So even him as an option instead of Ferguson wouldn't be a bad shot. I mean, for me, it just feels weird that we're at a point now where the Glazers could be selling and we're talking about potentially United making signings with very good forward thinking. It just feels wrong to me to talk about, but it looks like a possibility. So I don't think there's a lot of, personally on the striker front, I don't think there's a lot of proven players out there more than Kane. The problem is he could be priced out of a move, but it might be a case where Harry Kane actually stops being too professional for his own good, puts his foot down and says to Daniel Levy, listen, mate, get me out of here, please. I'm fed up of this.
Yeah, that is true. Look, Gary Neville calls Harry Kane a saint or something, don't he? He needs to stop being one. He just needs to tell Tottenham, look, thanks for having me for all these years. You know, it's been great. I've been loyal, but look, the grass is greener, and it's up at Old Trafford. That will be getting done up, hopefully, as well. But on that, we will get score predictions for Thursday's game off all the lads, and I'll give mine as well. And so do get your score predictions in the comments, guys. And look, we will be doing the match reaction on Thursday as well. But come to you first, Julio. What's your score prediction for Thursday? Are we going to get over Sevilla Hoodoo finally?
My one worry is the last couple of weeks. We've looked a little bit off the pace. It was obvious against Newcastle. We got the job done, I said last week, against Brentford. Everton weren't going to trouble us too much of the weekend, so I had faith in us getting the job done, despite the fact that Jordan Pickford turned into prime Manuel Neuer that day. But I think Ten Hag will go strong with Casemiro coming back in as well. I'm going to go for a 3-0 win on Thursday.
3-0. Confident and a clean sheet. Jonathan, are you in the same boat? Are you going for a 3-0 win, or do you think it's going to be a slightly tougher game?
Yeah, funnily enough, I was thinking exactly the same thing, 3-0 actually. I just think with Casemiro coming back now fresh, he'll be chomping at the bit. I hope he's not chomping too hard, though. I know he's under a yellow card away from another suspension. So, but with him coming back and Eriksen coming back, it just gives you that technical foothold in the middle of the park that I think we will be able to unlock that Sevilla team easier than we would have done over the last couple of weeks. So I think we should be comfortable enough 2 or 3-0, definitely. 2
boys are fair confident. Jay, I know there's times me and you've done score predictions together since August, and they've been great, and they have been so great. Come here to me. Well, what's your what? How are you feeling now? Are you feeling confident, pessimistic? Hit me with it.
I think we can. I think we're too strong for Sevilla. I think it'll be a tough game, but I think we'll win. I'm going to go with 3-1. I think they might nick a goal, but I think 3-1 going away and I think we'll get a result over there. So yeah, I think it's not going to be done. We're not going to get a result where we go, well, that's that. We're still going to have to do a bit of work in the second leg. But I feel confident we can get past Sevilla. I actually fancy us for the Europa this season.
Yeah, I backed us at 8-1 at Christmas when the Barcelona won. So I threw 20 quid on. So I am fucking praying that we do get that Europa League win. That'd be absolutely fantastic. So we've 2 3-0s and 3-1. I'm gonna go 2-0. I think, like Jay, I think we'd be comfortable in that 2-0. I think we'd be comfortable. But I do think we'll have something to do when we get to Seville. It'll be still a tough occasion. But on my score prediction, I'm going to go for my first goal scorer. It's going to be Anthony Martial. Adam McCullough would love that one. The Anthony Martial goal scorer prediction. But yeah, look, as always, guys, thanks very much for jumping on. It's been a great chat. Brian says 2-1, and also Trevor says 4-1. So we've some confidence in the chat as well. We will have match reaction Thursday. Mark will be hosting that one. And yeah, thanks very much to Jade, Jonathan, Julia for jumping on, and I hope everyone has a good evening. But until then, guys, we'll see you Thursday.